I'd like to call to order our regular city council meeting for today, Tuesday, September 18th, 2018. Can everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Roll call.
Mayor Mays?
Here.
Council President Garland?
Here.
Councilor Kuiper?
Here.
Councilor Young? Here. Councilor Browse?
Here.
Councilor Griffin?
Here.
Councilor Rosner?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. We have next item is approval of the agenda. Any changes?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Council. Consent agenda. We have 3 items on the consent agenda tonight. First, item A, approval of the September 4th, 2018 City Council minutes. Item B, Resolution 2018-077 establishing a leave donation policy. Item C, Resolution 2018-078 authorizing the city manager to execute a construction contract for the 2018 pavement overlay projects. Motion on the consent?
I move to approve consent. Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of approving the consent as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Council. Citizen comments. Anyone like to address Council on anything? No sheets? Another call? Anyone? Anyone? All right, we'll move on. Presentations. We have 3 presentations today. First is introduction of new staff. Joe?
Mayor and Council, we have 2 new staff members who have joined us in the last month or so, and they're coming up now. I get to introduce one, and then Katie will introduce the other. So first is our new HR analyst, Christina Jones. And Christina joined us about a month ago, approximately. A very important addition to our organization. We're very happy she's here. She came from California, Northern California. She has worked in the public sector HR field for over 10 years. Came from the city of Redding, California, which is a city in Northern California that you may be familiar with. That's where all the fires were this summer. A very terrible situation. She knows some of the folks that were directly impacted by those fires. And then prior to that, she was at Shasta County working in HR as well. So she's new to Oregon, getting settled, and is working out very well so far. And
we had a little bit of a hot spell when we first were here. That was, well, that's more common, but this is the prime time of the year for being here. So, Christina, welcome.
I told them that they may get questions, so if you have any questions, you certainly can ask. You don't have to. But.
Sometimes it's not a good thing to tell people you're from California.
Yes, I've been told that, so please don't hold it against me. But Redding's only about 2 hours away, so it's not much in Oregon.
That's true. Close enough,
Wait a
right?
minute.
It's a good, decent spin attempt, but get new plates quickly if you have.
Not all
if you
Californians are bad.
Oh, this is so true. But it's comical. Anyways, other questions for?
So why Sherwood?
Well, when I was looking at different agencies, just coming up here for my interview, the area is beautiful, and then the opportunity, of course, I was really excited about. Like you said, I've been doing HR for, over 16 years, and I love it. And then here, just for a smaller agency, it gives me more opportunities to be able to grow, learn a little bit different things. And it is a little bit different, California to Oregon with some of those, but I'm really enjoying learning those differences. So that's why I liked and enjoyed coming here.
Excellent, thanks.
All right, Katie, you also have a new employee.
Yes, we have Jennifer. So we have multiple Jens. And we decided that when we bring someone on, we do it right. We throw them right in with the auditors, because That's how we show them.
Isn't there a
that they
period
are
of time where they can decide they don't want to be here anymore?
I've already pled with her, please. This is not how it's always going to be. But I'm going to let her introduce herself and give a little background on herself.
Hi, Jen LeBon. I've lived in Sherwood for 6 years, a little over 6 years. My husband is born and raised. His parents are born and raised here, so we've got some deep roots here. I come from, I've done accounting for nonprofits and done law firms in the last couple of years. I'm originally from North Central Washington up in the Okanagan. And yeah, that's about it.
And your next, it's Jennifer Blonde?
LeBlanc.
Oh.
LeBon.
LeBon. Okay. Connections are being made.
You know some of those family
Don't
members?
hold it against me, okay?
So Jennifer is in the Finance Tech 2 position, which is a position we haven't had in the past. This is a position that's sort of between the Finance Tech 1 and the accountant position. When we had all of these budget restructurings and things like that, her position came out of it. So she has a lot of experience in the finance world. She likes her weekends and evenings, so she's not looking to move on to accounting. Likes the outdoors, loves the dogs, that type of thing. So she brings a lot of knowledge on the day-to-day tasks and the accounting, all of that bookkeeping type of thing, and that's where she hopes to be able to stay, loves the tiny commute, and
Awesome.
and is just jumping right in, very little training, and just catching up on everything very, very quickly. So we're really lucky to have her as part of the team.
Awesome. Welcome.
Excellent.
Welcome,
Yeah.
Jennifer.
Welcome.
Other questions for Jennifer?
Just what is your primary, what are you working on right now? What, or what will you be responsible for?
Right now, I'm doing all the daily, like, deposits and the daily journal entries and things.
Yep.
And then right now, I'm also just doing all the polling that the auditors want.
How lovely of Katie to give that to you. Okay. Passing it along. Very good. Okay.
So when Joe mentioned your name, it sounded really familiar to me. Were you in my class? Was it kickboxing?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh.
I remember. All right.
Now we
Thanks.
have two people to look out for.
Awesome. Well, Jennifer and Christina, welcome both of you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Next, Police Advisory Board, Community Input Survey. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm simply going to introduce the current chair of the Police Advisory Board, Chris West, and turn it over to him.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, councilors and Mayor Mays. As was mentioned, I'm Chris West, and I live at 23779 Southwest Shady Grove Drive here in our little town of city of Sherwood. But I'm here tonight as chair of the Police Advisory Board to provide the board's input to the police department's future staffing needs assessment that we heard some of tonight during the work session. As a little background, the Police Advisory Board has been chartered for about 4.5 years, and currently 5 of our 9 members have been in place since the beginning. And we have Councilor Garland that was there at the beginning too. During this tenure, we've been involved in and with the review of the matrix study, and also the City Council's evaluation of contracting with Washington County Sheriff's Department over the graveyard shift coverage. On July 19th of this year, the chief presented the advisory board with his staffing assessment, very similar to what you heard tonight. And based on that, we acknowledge the downward trend that the chief presented in department staffing, that we're seeing it with the population going up and the trend down, and the upward trend in service calls. When you couple these with population projections, a new high school, new retail service, entertainment businesses already in development, it's our assessment that the department has been treading water for a while. And I think you heard similar comments, maybe not quite as blunt as the chief. And this situation is very risky from our perspective. We also know, and you guys discussed it in the work session, that it takes over a year to recruit and train new officers so they can patrol on their own. And lateral officers may take a shorter time, but to staff up, this is going to take a significant effort, and it could take several years to do. And then you also, as we've seen in the last couple of years, there's attrition. People move on, they retire, and you've got to backfill those too. And there's only so many warm bodies that can meet the standards that Sherwood would hire. So it's going to take time. And as you all know, Sherwood's little secret is out that both nationally and regionally we're recognized as a great place to live, raise a family, own a business. Being safe and livable and recognized for that must be maintained. And if we start that slippery slope to where we can't keep those high community service in our policing, it's going to be very difficult to reverse that trend. That's our view. So based on this assessment that the chief presented to us in July and comments by our liaison, Councilor Young, and the role that we understand that the councilor expects out of us in providing advice, we developed a questionnaire, a short little questionnaire, to obtain citizen input on the department's priorities, concern, and staffing needs. Many of you were at National Night Out and got interviewed with the questionnaire, so you know what was in it. And we took advantage of Robin Hood, National Night Out, and gatherings at the Senior Center to, along with many of us, talk to our neighbors and friends and like we've done in the past. It was an informal survey, nothing scientific about it, but our sample size was about 78 individuals, and there was about 40 people that participated at the Senior Center in small group discussions that we gathered information. So the findings out of the survey, and this is just some high-level stuff, the 5 top priorities listed in order is community safety is number 1, neighborhood traffic number 2. Surprise, we heard it in the work session, traffic. More staff, school safety, and public outreach. And that may be the visibility stuff that we talked about too. I think it is. Now the 5 biggest concerns that we pulled out of the survey is understaffing, lack of funds, safety, neighborhood speed and safety, there's that traffic stuff again, and more SROs. I don't think there's a single surprise in those 2 lists. Then we asked the big question, based on what you feel, what do you feel is the number of officers that should be on duty at any one time in our community? That's how we asked it, not including chief, captains, or sergeants. Patrol officers. A strong majority said 4 or more. And nearly 90% said 3 or more. Okay, and that's just perception. And I'm going to add something else that we hadn't planned, but we had there was a little discussion in the work session about detectives. We asked, how many detectives do you think we should have? Without any of the statistics or anything. The acknowledgement that we only have 1 is mind-boggling, is what we heard. They just think that there's got to be more than 1. Just like the SR, there's got to be more than 1 to service the needs of this community. And then we asked the big question, and that was about support for finding funding to meet a budget that would provide the service that they expect or want. And 2/3, without any numbers, not saying it's going to be a fee or a levy or anything, just are you willing to come up and pay more some way for this added? 2/3 said yes, and 30% said maybe. There was only just a handful that said no. So again, this wasn't scientific. It was captured audiences in many cases, but it's a good first test. So based on the chief's assessment and the presentation that you guys saw, our citizen survey and our experience over the 4+ years, the Police Advisory Board unanimously supports the chief's vision and pros plan for investing in the future of policing here in the city of Sherwood. We believe the time is critical and we can't afford to fall any further behind these trending statistics, which are not trending in a good way. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Chris, thank you, and the Police Advisory Board, which you represent, greatly appreciate you taking the effort in reaching out at these events at the Senior Center to get people's perception. It's incredible that you did that. Great data to supplement the report that we just got from the police chief. I know when I came back into office was right as the budget process was starting, and certainly my priority, one of them was on this topic, and we kind of got kicked in the shins with some budget realities, but I don't believe the commitment by the council is not very, very high to a person to work on this in the coming weeks and months, because public safety is critical, and it's not just reactionary, it's being proactive. So thank you very much.
And the advisory board stands ready to...
I had my darn mic off again. I apologize, everyone.
The advisory board stands ready to help with whatever additional resources we can provide in your working on this.
Thank you, Chris. And I'm still getting used to this darn mic. I turned it off so no one would hear me cough or shift papers during Chris's presentation, and I'm sorry about that. Thank you again, Chris, and Police Chief, for a great work session that we had beforehand on this. Next is a proclamation for today. At 4 o'clock today at the Sherwood YMCA, we had an event to celebrate today, and like to do it in the community with this proclamation as well. So, whereas the YMCA and the city of Sherwood began its partnership back in September 18th, 1998, and the YMCA of Columbia Willamette was founded in 1868. The membership has grown to its present size of approximately 10,000 members. The growth of programs include activities for all ages and incomes for residents of Sherwood and surrounding communities. The Sherwood Regional YMCA is enjoyed and as a significant community hub for people to become more connected with each other and become healthier in spirit, mind, and body. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Keith Mays, Mayor of Sherwood, do hereby proclaim the week of September 18th through the 25th as YMCA City of Sherwood Partnership Celebration Week, and urge everyone to join in and celebrate this successful partnership, which was the first of its kind in the nation. So, it's kind of a big deal. And there was a lot of people that were really excited about acknowledging that at our Y earlier today, and I think we should all be very proud of our partnership with them. So, moving on to new business. Resolution 2018-073, appointing members of and liaisons to the City Charter Review Committee. Joe.
Actually, I'm going to hand this over to Josh. It has my name on it, but I think Josh has done the majority of the work, so.
Yeah, it's got your name on the agenda and my name on the staff report, so I'm not sure that happened. But so this item should feel familiar to most of you. As you'll recall, the City Council established a Charter Review Committee. That was back on June 19th. There's a process set up through that and through the council rules for filling the positions on that committee. There's some positions that were recommended to be filled by the various boards and commissions, some that were recommended to be filled from at-large positions by review of applications by the mayor, and then there's also a liaison and an alternate liaison that are recommended by the mayor. Those positions all have to be either confirmed or approved by the city council based on those council rules. And so this resolution would do that. So we have attached to the staff report a resolution, and then attached to that an exhibit that lists the positions and their names. And if council approves of those, we just need to approve the resolution, and then we can get started with the work of the committee.
Great. Thanks, Josh. Discussion or a motion?
Okay, well, I'll start. So it looks like we have some representation from each of the commissions. Can you tell us a little bit about how you went about choosing the different
Sure.
citizen at large?
Sure. So we had 5 applicants, and I reviewed the applications and looked at the recommendations that were at the time and wanted to have a balance of experience and less experience. And for me, having a wide range of year coverage of folks that have lived and worked with the charter would give great perspective to the process and balance. Great members from our different boards and commissions, but had various levels of experience with the city and or with the charter.
Okay. So my question is, we had, how many people do we have for the at-large position?
We have 3.
No, I mean, how many applicants?
We had 5.
5 applicants. So we have one applicant here who's also on the planning commission. So we have, isn't Mark Cottle on the planning
Yep.
commission now? So we have, even though he might be at large, he's also on the planning commission. So we have representation from the planning, even though Ms. Holm, who's here, Commissioner Holm, probably has less experience.
Right. She was appointed 2 months ago.
Yep. Brian Amer probably has less experience. Randy Mifflin, Bernie Sims. Bob has been on the board before. I work with Bob on the Charter Commission. And then, of course, Linda Henderson and Dave Grant. So that's just my only question here is Mark Cottle as a citizen at large who's also on the Planning Commission, and Lori Holm, who's also on the Planning Commission. Those are my only 2. And I just thought you could convince me.
You bet.
Or
So
maybe someone else on the board or in council.
So by adding Mark, he's the only one that actually was a mayor in the past. So he has that perspective to add to the group conversation, which is important. He's also the only one that worked before he was mayor, he was on city council for 8 years and other things, and had interaction of working with other mayors, which I thought was valuable. Plus as we know, he's done a lot of things in his 25, 30 plus years. So that breadth of experience and I thought brings great value.
Yeah, he absolutely does. He absolutely
Same,
does.
Mike,
Yes,
probably
I do. So why not have him be the planning commission representative and then have someone, one of the other 5?
And we can, if that's the desire of council. I wanted to, there's nothing in the ordinance or resolution to start creating the charter review committee, the structure that an at-large person could not be also serving on a city board or commission. So I didn't say that as a restriction. And my preference was to honor the recommendation from each board or commission. So for me, it's not a problem that there happens to be 2.
The only reason I bring it up is because I know we had a couple of other applicants who, in my view, would be, I think, do well to give an opportunity to participate while not losing the experience that you're going for at the at-large positions.
And that is an option. Okay. The other two that applied both went through the Citizens University, which is great, awesome. And volunteered in other ways. In the case of your putting Mark in Lori's place from the Planning Commission. Lori also went through the same class, City University class, which is great. So.
Okay. Anyway,
So I
that's
think one
just my
point of
thoughts.
clarification too is that the planning commission actually met last week and nominated and approved Lori as the planning commission representative. It wasn't actually something that the mayor. Yeah, these are all
Yes,
selected by
the
boards
six
and
boards and commissions. This is what they each recommended to me, and I didn't
Okay, so
alter
that's
their.
important.
I
That's
didn't
important.
You
alter
only
their.
chose the three.
Correct.
Okay.
I recommended the three, and I recommended the
Okay.
council liaison and alternate after feedback from
Okay.
y'all.
Okay.
I had a comment as well. So that was my same concern. First of all, I wouldn't want to replace anybody that the boards and commissions have recommended, because that was their choice, right? And then when I saw this and knew that we had two others who had gone through the Citizens University, and the one thing we encourage them after Citizen University is to apply for some of our other boards and commissions.
Right.
And then, to me, this looks like we are stacking this committee with past counselors, which I understand the experience thing, and discounting some of our other citizens who put in the time and are interested in getting involved somewhere else. So that was just my concern.
Sure. And I respect that, and I certainly would encourage the other applicants to the advisory or the charter review committee will have public meetings and take testimony from the community on things they want them to consider looking at. And so folks that have gone through the Citizens University or serve on other boards and commissions, or the general public, of course, can suggest this point, that point, and the other thing, and they can still do that. So that's I certainly wouldn't refer to this as being stacked, because if you know any of those three members of the recommended at-large folks, they're diverse, perspective, and
Well,
independent.
yeah, correct, they are.
And
I guess that
and balance each other else very well, I think. And then we have, six people that have served in one length of time or another on our advisory committees.
Okay.
And so the six here that are chosen were by their own boards and commissions.
Correct.
Okay, so that's important. So we don't want to change that piece at all.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. Okay.
Anything else?
Is one of the other applicants from the at-large citizens here tonight?
Yeah, at least one.
Okay. Nancy, correct? Okay. And is there any other conversation that we can have about possibly having a different at-large citizenry taking into account the fact that there would be two planning commission representatives?
That is not my recommendation.
But as a council, as a whole, we could choose that.
Right, so the mayor made recommendations, and then council makes the final approval decision. So if council voted to amend the resolution to change the exhibit, to change the names, that's how the final approval takes place. So council has the final say on who the appointees actually are. Mayor makes the recommendation. Or the boards and commissions make the recommendation in the case of the first six, as we've discussed.
Right. So I move Resolution 2018-073, appointing members and liaisons to the City Charter Review Committee. Is there a second?
just for purpose, if we second, do we still have discussion on that? Well, I'll second, and then we can have some discussion.
Great. Discussion on the motion.
Okay, I'm going to weigh in. Since I was originally, the person who brought, this came up on my radar right away. And so I emailed Josh and I got some information he gave to me from the council rules. And basically our goal generally is to not necessarily appoint more than one person who was already on a committee to another important committee within the city. I think that was my first concern. And so that was my question. And of course you were out of town. So we felt like, okay, let's postpone, which is the correct word, to that amendment so we could talk about it. So I think this is the moment when the mayor gets to justify his decision. So I had a brief conversation with the mayor yesterday about this issue. It wasn't an in-depth conversation, but I felt as I went through, and I think it was Josh who sent us the applications, the PDFs of all the applications. I went through all of those again, and I looked at, the qualifications. Not that anybody has. I think if you live in the city of Sherwood, you're qualified. Yeah. I think that's it. But I thought about the Charter Review Committee. I thought of the importance of that document. I thought about the breadth of knowledge and the balance of the personalities, and the highs and the lows, and the strongs and the softs, and the introverts and the extroverts. And I thought about how we, even though we have, loud people and soft people, we all still seem to get along pretty well. And I felt like I challenged the mayor that if something seemed to be coming imbalanced when the Charter Review Committee starts to meet, that he would step in and maybe help remedy the situation, and he guaranteed that he would do that. So I felt like I wanted to honor his recommendation at the moment, because it's his recommendation, and I couldn't see necessarily anything in the applications that convinced me otherwise at the moment. So that's my take on it.
And it's true, if there are at least 5 healthy personalities on the list of, conservatively 5, and as well as 2 healthy personalities that are going to be the council liaison and alternates. So I think if they're not able to play well together, then I will absolutely look at changes if needed.
The fact that we even have to think that way is kind of concerning.
Well, there was a meeting, then Cottle got on the planning commission and definitely made his presence known and didn't adapt very well in his first meeting. And he's, by all appearance, and I've had a couple conversations with him in the last week, to stress that the collective expectations, and he's acknowledged that, yes, that is what he agrees he needs to react. He was definitely pressing staff, and wasn't, in one meeting at least, was not using constructive language. But
well, I do have, in my 4 years on council, there's been some ups and downs and roller coasters where we've had to apply and look at the charter. And Josh was kind of thrown into the deep end. I'm early on where we had some charter, issues related to the charter. And I thought, is someone keeping track of this and writing a white paper on all the subtle, and they're very subtle problems, but they are significant,
right,
and create problems. So I personally would be, comfortable if I knew, like I know Linda Henderson, and I know she really gets in and is a stickler for those subtle things. So that's a really great addition. I don't know much about Dave Grant except he was on council. Mark Cottle, does he have a good understanding of some of those problematic things that occur in a council setting where you have to refer back to the charter, and maybe the charter says one thing and maybe an ordinance will say another, and they can be completely at odds? And so I am concerned that those little things are not going to get
he's a lawyer.
I do. But he's also he could be bellicose, right? Mm-hmm. So can the detail is on the paper.
Sure.
And so I want to make sure that
by his training, he absolutely, more than anyone else that is suggested to serve, by his training, does that. Which is part of the added value of him being on there, of the service, but the fact that he's lived and breathed it and been in the community for so long, involved in all these different ways, and is a lawyer. I mean, part of the
You keeping
challenge.
track of some of the issues that we were having?
Oh, yes, yes.
Because they have to be addressed by the
Once in
Charter
last
Review
3 years
Committee.
anyway.
Okay.
Tim probably has a good record too.
Yeah, well, yeah. I'd
I
like
know
to,
I do.
I'd like to weigh in as well. I had, at first blush, Councilor Griffin, when you brought this up in the first meeting, I had a similar concern. I myself went through Citizen University, see the value in that, and we want to promote people that are coming out of that, hopefully, into our various boards and commissions, and ultimately to sit up here at some point in time. And I remember a conversation with you, Councilor Kuiper, where we talked about those subtleties, and a lot of it came out of the trials and tribulations our community went through last year. As I think about that, I mean, coming out of that, we created new council rules, and one of our big objectives in there was to de-emphasize the power of the mayor to control the agenda. So we're a council of equals. We encourage collegiate working together, to get things done. And I think we have that right now, just based on the personalities here, and a lot of awesome people sitting up here. But the idea was, how do we prevent this from happening in the future? What can we, council rules are great because they govern us, but a future council can change those, right? So the charter, they can't change. So part of bringing this charter committee to the forefront.
The council rules, contradicts the charter and the charter rules.
Yeah, so
that's why,
part of the reason for doing this charter review committee was to have this group look at that and find ways to modify our charter so we don't have that type of thing happen in the future. And I really started thinking about these candidates. I talked to the mayor about it, and we need balance, so having some counselors on there, having, I think, a former mayor on there is important to bring that view to the community. I share some of the concerns that were brought up here and had a similar conversation with the mayor about that Councilor Griffin brought up. So I'm generally supportive of this with those caveats, because I think it's important that for this charter review committee, we get it right, that we don't leave those loopholes, those nuances that can be manipulated in the future. We don't want history repeating itself.
Here.
And if I could just jump in as well, because it sounds like I'm not the only person who have spoken to the mayor about this and who had some heartburn on this issue as well. And I think it again is just having two people from the Planning Commission being selected. I know personally almost every one of these people on here, and I know that we have some very strong voices from the boards and commissions, and Linda and Dave I know have a great deal of experience and are strong leaders as well. I do not know the fifth citizen applicant, but I do know Miss Nancy Ellingson very well. I consider her to be a very good friend, and I know that she's done a lot for our community, not only going through Citizens University, but being a volunteer for our Sherwood Police Department for a number of years. She's a bit of an unsung hero in helping to clean up Snyder Park. She maybe doesn't want me to say that, but I know she's there all the time cleaning up after people and doesn't ask for congratulations or recognition for that. She serves our city very well, and so I wanted to thank her for even volunteering to be a member of this City Charter Review Committee. And so I have certainly had some heartburn with this as well. I have some concerns just with the overall makeup of this group, and I want to make sure that we don't have too many strong voices and that there is some control in this. And I know once the committee is formed, there will be a chair, and there will be some expectations and probably some rules laid out early on. I am the Planning Commission liaison from the City Council, and I've seen some of the obliquely mentioned actions at the planning commissions, and I would hope that that doesn't continue at this charter review committee. I'm trying to stop saying that because I can't say it. So this committee, so that would be my hope. I do certainly recognize the need, as Councilor Rosner said and a few others have said, to have a very experienced group, because this is important. This isn't, we need to get this right. We need to make sure that we have some experience. And I do recognize that Mark Cottle does bring a lot of that experience here. So, at this point, I'm willing to, move along with this recommendation, just with some hopes and some expectations that we do play nice in the sandbox, and that we, focus on what we need to do, and that strong personalities don't overwhelm the greater good here.
Here.
And I would like to add one item, and I also would like to thank Nancy for applying for the position, and you are an unsung hero, so I second what Councilor Garland has said, Council President Garland. This has somewhat to do with the committee, but is there a way that we as a council can at least identify and get those issues on paper that are putting bees in our bonnets for the past 3 to 4 years, so that we can make sure that the Charter Review Committee does address those?
So we can formally suggest a list of items as a council.
Okay.
We can individually submit something, testimony, one way or the other.
Okay.
To the, we in essence, once we form it, we are an elected individuals. Right. But for input, I don't think individual comments are a bad thing, or we can do it as a group.
Right.
It is strictly suggestions of ideas to explore, and they run with it and tackle those items or not, or other items that they want to tackle.
Okay.
I mean, that's the strength of having a very diverse,
right.
Independent advisory committee to look it up.
Well, what I was suggesting is, yes, the sky's the limit for whatever they want to address, but in addition to,
Right. Absolutely.
there
So
needs to be some of these issues that really were problematic.
Yeah.
But it's still there.
Councilor Kuiper, how would
Yeah.
you like us? How would you like to communicate those concerns to the committee? What?
I would like to see, I do have notes of things, I'm sure Councilor Rosner does, maybe all of council has things that they go back to things, during some of the YMCA discussions and some other items that we could collectively send to Josh. Could we do that? And then you could come up with this short list?
City council shouldn't evaluate applications themselves.
Not evaluate, but I'm talking about things that were problematic that really need to be addressed.
Well, would we see that being the role of the liaisons here to bring that forth to the board?
Absolutely, sure.
Or what is the
However it gets is what I'm saying. However it can get to the committee.
Right. And so there are, Renee certainly served through a lot of that in that time. Councilor Rosner, to a lesser extent, but was aware by it as an observer. So I think they can certainly communicate those. And if any of you have ideas, you can share those points with them directly to them communicate, or I'm
How about we collectively come up with something as a council together and pass it through our liaison?
I think that's a good plan.
Okay.
Because right now, these are just these vague problems that I remember coming up, and I'd have to go back and
Probably sounds
rehash
like a
them.
small work session.
And I would add to avoid, running against public meeting law, if we all came up with our list, gave it to Josh, have him compile that, and then give it back to the council for approval.
I think that's a good idea. So everyone, assuming we pass a resolution today or not, everyone send an email or sit down in Josh's office and give him a brain dump.
You got about 4 hours.
And I'll compile this and bring it back to a work session. Is that the plan? Is that what it sounds like?
I think that'd be good.
Great.
For another 4 hours for me.
Because once a committee is formed, they'll need to figure out a common calendar to meet, and then figure out a plan of how to act.
Yep.
So
Any other discussion?
So hearing your reasoning behind Mark Cottle, I would be okay with moving forward with this.
Okay.
With the understanding that if there's problems, the makeup of that committee could be changed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any other comments? We have a motion and a second. There's no additional comments. All in favor of approving Resolution 2018-073, appointing members of and liaison to the City Charter Review Committee, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Thank you, Council. Public hearings. First of 4 first readings of 3 ordinances. Sylvia?
The Sherwood City Council will hold public hearings this evening to hear testimony on 3 ordinances listed on the agenda. Ordinance 2018-006, amending Chapter 16.134, floodplain overlay of the Sherwood Zoning and Community Development Code to adopt the 2018 Washington County Flood Insurance Study and associated FEMA flood insurance rate maps. Ordinance 2018-007, amending sections of the Sherwood Zoning and Community Development Code, including divisions 1, 2, 3, and 4. And ordinance 2018-008, amending sections of the Sherwood Zoning and Community Development Code, including divisions 1 and 2, as it relates to the regulation of medical marijuana dispensaries. The public hearing this evening will be conducted as follows. Staff will present a staff report, questions by the council for staff. We will receive written testimony. We will then open the public hearing for testimony, and the time will be limited to 4 minutes per person. Any interested person may present testimony. We will then close the public hearing. No other comments will be heard. Final comments by staff, questions of staff, if any, by the council, discussion by the council. This is the first hearing before the City Council on these items. Generally, the council will hold 2 public hearings prior to making a decision. A second hearing on these items are currently scheduled for October the 2nd. However, in accordance with the city charter, council reserves the right to make a decision at the close of this hearing by a unanimous vote on any of all sitting council members. If you wish to speak, please fill out the testimony form and submit it to the city recorder. The mayor will recognize people who wish to speak, and any questions should be addressed through the mayor. When you come forward, please state your name and address for the record, as this hearing will be recorded.
Thank you, Sylvia. So, come on up. Erica, floor is yours. So starting off with ordinance, or do you want to, we're going to tackle them one at a time, right?
We'll tackle them one at a time here, so no one gets confused and I can answer any questions along the way. So good evening, Council. My name is Erica Palmer. I'm Planning Manager for the City of Sherwood. And like you said, tonight I have 3 ordinances that I'll be presenting, and the first one is Ordinance 2018-006. But before I start this presentation, I want to update Council or I want Council to be aware of additional FEMA amendments that'll be coming your way. Planning Commission will hold a public hearing on October 9th, and then City Council on October 16th. FEMA, just last week on September 10th, contacted the city with some additional amendments that are needed to our floodplain overlay. And this only gave a 38-day window for approval. And we have to abide by our processes in our code for public comments. We do a 20-day public notice, in addition to a 35-day notice requirement to the state. So this really kind of compresses the time to get these plan amendments done. So you will probably be seeing an emergency ordinance on October 16th for these additional. They're very minor in nature, but they'll be coming your way and you'll be seeing those soon.
And for the community to understand, these deadlines are important for us to get them done in time, because otherwise those that need flood insurance can't get flood insurance. Is my understanding right?
Correct. No, that is correct. And I'll as I go through this presentation, I'll emphasize if we don't adopt these amendments per the FEMA deadline, which is October 19th, there are some consequences that could potentially occur.
Yeah. So thank FEMA for Tim and I calling from China on the 16th. I kid you not.
That's right.
Hey, I know this is the middle of this thing, but I talked to the city manager this week about that very issue. What if something happens and you can't, it has to be a 7-0 vote.
Correct.
For emergency. What if something happens and you can't communicate with us? We can't get you on the phone.
So I've got cell service in China and I can call. So we will schedule it so that we're not on the plane traveling someplace. We will, at the time of our meeting might not be 7 o'clock for that emergency meeting. It might be 5, it might be 4.
2 a.m.
It's just 3 days before the deadline.
Or past 2 a.m.
If you guys feel pretty confident about that.
We may be back the next day for an emergency meeting or the next day somehow.
Yeah, well.
In that time frame.
And I think we'll have a practice call too, quite possibly.
And we do have our
big bucks for it.
itinerary, so we can make sure that it falls.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for bringing that up. Jeez.
We'll make it happen.
Sorry,
right.
Erica.
But yes, fun, added little workload for city staff, and we were one of 40 communities, jurisdictions across Oregon that this late notice of changes happened to.
Yes.
And luckily, we still can make the deadline. Some of our neighboring jurisdictions won't be able to. So,
All right. Thank you, Mayor.
yeah.
So moving on, this ordinance that you have in front of you tonight, the proposal is to adopt the current FEMA flood insurance rate maps and the associated flood insurance study for Washington County. These maps, the firm maps, show the community's base flood elevation, the flood zones, and the floodplain boundaries. These maps were adopted in 2016, and this is just the update. And since that time, there have been no significant changes to these maps. You can find these maps online on the city's website along with the insurance study. And just to give you some numbers here about how many properties are within the flood zone here in Sherwood, we have about 60 properties that abut or have a portion of their property in that zone area, but only 2 properties have a structural encroachment into the floodplain boundary and that utilize the flood insurance program through FEMA.
Wow, only 2.
Yeah, so kudos to previous councils and planning commissions for helping to steer development outside of floodplain.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
So this is a pretty simple amendment right here. So FEMA requires us to adopt the firm maps and study by date reference into our code. So what we have here is just that simple change to our code in section 16.134. So we have a process to make these text amendments, and all text amendments have to be consistent with our comprehensive plan, our state and regional statutes and regulations, and then they have to also be consistent with the transportation planning rule if it applies. So what we have here tonight, this text amendment is necessary in order to be in compliance with FEMA. If we do not make these proposed changes that FEMA is recommending, the community of Sherwood could lose our ability to enter into the National Flood Insurance Program. So those 2 property owners that do utilize that program wouldn't be able to utilize that program anymore, which means that if they were to list their properties for sale and we're going through that process, they might not be able to sell their properties because banks wouldn't lend to them. Also, on a community-wide scale, if we're not in compliance with FEMA, if we have any community assistance grants through FEMA, possibly through our emergency services, FEMA could come back and say, hey, since you're not in compliance with our national floodplain firms and insurance maps, that we're not going to you're not going to be eligible for your FEMA grants that you have. So there are some consequences. So we want to make sure that we adopt these in a timely manner. This text is consistent with our comprehensive goals and policies. They don't conflict with any metro and statewide planning goals. And it does not conflict with the transportation planning rule because it's not a development-specific proposal. Public notice was given in a timely manner to the state, metro, and our agency partners. We advertised in the Tiger Times, and we also sent individual notice to those 60 property owners within Sherwood. So our recommendation tonight is to proceed with the first reading of ordinance 2018-006. And I can answer any questions that you may have.
Did you get any responses from any of the 60 property owners?
We had one response. That property owner came to the front counter and just asked some general questions because they had recently purchased their property and wanted to look at a map. But since they didn't have any encroachments or anything like that, they realized that the floodplain overlay zone is necessarily not going to apply to them.
Okay.
And just out of curiosity, if a requested change from FEMA came down that did run against metro or state level ordinances, regulations, code, how is that resolved?
That would have to be resolved at the state and regional levels because honestly, everybody should be in compliance with federal laws.
It would be embarrassing to the state and regional level. That's what it would be. And yes, they would have to quickly change.
So tonight's just first reading, right? Okay.
So we don't have to read the ordinance?
We don't vote.
We have to take,
There's no vote.
Right.
We've read the ordinance by
but we
title,
ask
so we
for
did that
testimony
right.
if anybody wants to weigh in on it today. So you don't go anywhere just in case it's. Would anyone from the audience like to give testimony on the proposed ordinance 2018-006 regarding the floodplain overlay? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing, first reading for this ordinance, and move on to the next one. So ordinance 2018-007, amending sections of the Sherwood Zoning and Community Development Code, including divisions 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Great, so this is ordinance 2018-007. It's a general housekeeping plan amendment, text changes to our code. Oh, it's not showing up here.
Brad.
All right, here it is. This computer likes to think a little bit too much, and then our in-focus machine goes out. But that's okay. I'm just going to move on. You have your packet in front of you.
Yes.
So this proposal amends several different chapters within our development code. Those chapters are listed in your staff report. And the majority of the amendments really seek to correct Scrivener errors, clarify code language and intent between sections of our code, and to make the code consistent with newly updated laws. So for examples, the text of the clear vision area doesn't match the diagram that's in our code. So we updated the diagram for the clear visions area to match the text that states how it's measured. We fixed different cross-reference citations within the code that don't match. And then we updated definitions to align with new state definitions. And then we updated tables once again in our parking section to match the text language describes the length of parking stalls. So overall, there's 10 amendments listed.
Gotcha.
And once again, we use the same criteria. All the plan text amendments have to be consistent with our comprehensive plan, with other provisions of our code and any applicable state and city statutes, and the transportation planning rule if it applies. So all of the proposed text amendments tonight in this ordinance are consistent with the comprehensive plan goals and policies. They do not conflict with metro and statewide planning goals because they're very minor in nature. And once again, they do not conflict with the transportation planning rule because it isn't a development specific item. So Planning Commission did hold a work session on August 24th to review all these code amendments. And then we held a work session with City Council on August 21st. A public notice was given to DLCD, Metro, and our agency partners. It was advertised in the Tiger Times, and the notice was posted around the city.
What are our 5 posted locations these days?
Oh, city.
No, this is post office, the city.
Post office, the senior center, the YMCA, upstairs in the city hall lobby, and then here in the lobby to the library.
Okay. Great.
And we did not hear any comments or public testimony from citizens of Sherwood in regards to these plan updates. So staff recommends to proceed with the first reading of ordinance 2018-007.
Awesome. Thank you, Erica. Any public testimony? Anyone like to comment on the proposed first reading of the ordinance? Going once, going twice. We'll close the public hearing on ordinance 2018-007 for the first reading and be back for the second reading before you know it.
I have a question, though.
Yes?
Who is going through these in mind-numbing detail to find
Gene
these?
Simmons.
It's unbelievable.
Staff, we find a lot of errors as we work with people up at the front counter going through the code quite often.
So
Some of those
what-
have been there for years, like the
I
drawing,
know.
the clearance not drawing, not matching the code. We've been talking that for years. So
Yeah.
What I hear is Councilor Kuiper, who is going to retire from council at the end of this year. She
quitting.
will volunteer to read your code.
To go through. I might enjoy it, actually.
So volunteer. Check.
I will say one thing. It reminds me of sometimes you'll pick up a magazine or you'll go, especially online for that clickbait stuff, where you'll see a photograph of someone wearing, I don't know, maybe a short hair, okay, like shoulder length hair. And the caption will read, so-and-so star in her perfectly coiffed chopped do. And it's not a chopped do, it's down here. It makes no sense.
That is an
Does that make sense?
outstanding example that I truly have no clue what you mean.
gosh.
You don't have any clue what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Councilor Kuiper, you didn't help your cause at all. No, that was not a
It's where
good
the
argument.
caption does not accurately describe what is visually being displayed on the
Right.
photograph.
That was definitely an issue we had.
And yes, I'm exaggerating, but thank you.
We're gonna miss you so much.
Oh, you're gonna have to start singing from up there.
What?
You're gonna have to take over the singing.
So we're moving on to our next last public hearing of the evening. First reading of Ordinance 2018-008, amending sections of Sherwood Zoning and Community Development Code, including Divisions 1 and 2, as it relates to the regulation of medical marijuana dispensaries, a exciting, riveting topic for us all.
Great, yes. So this is Ordinance 2018-008 that amends the medical marijuana dispensary code sections in our code. And those are chapters 16.10, where we have some definitions in regards to medical marijuana facilities, and then chapter 16.38, which is the special use chapter of our code that describes in detail the standards for having a medical marijuana facility within Sherwood. So this amendment is coming before you tonight. And it's being proposed because of a new state licensing regulation of medical marijuana dispensaries. So state law previously provided that medical marijuana facilities were regulated by the Oregon Health Authority, and recreational marijuana facilities were regulated by the Oregon Liquor Control Commission. And the city's code was drafted accordingly and really differentiated between the two licensing agencies. Since this new updated law, recreational, or actually medical marijuana facilities can be licensed through either the Oregon Health Authority or the OLCC. And so what we have gone through our code, and we really updated those sections that needed to reflect this new language in state law. So once again, it's the same approval criteria as the last two ordinances. Any code amendments have to be consistent with our comprehensive plan and our state and regional regulations, as well as the transportation planning rule if it applies. So these changes that we have made to the code in regards to the new licensing regulations are consistent with state law. And they're consistent with our city's comprehensive plan, metro, and our state land use goals. And then it's also consistent with the transportation planning rule, because there's, once again, this isn't a development-specific application, and there's no impacts to the existing city transportation system. Planning Commission held a work session on July 24th. And City Council had a work session on this topic on August 21st. And we went ahead and we did all of our public noticing in accordance with our development code. We noticed the state, our agency partners, we advertised in the Times, and we posted within 5 different places throughout the city. And staff recommends to proceed with the first hearing of the ordinance 2018-008.
Hey, do not like our microphones. Thank you, Erica. Anyone in the audience from our community that would like to give testimony on the proposed ordinance? Awesome. Anthony Stewart. Welcome.
Green.
Green go.
Push it longer. There you go.
Well, first, thanks as always to staff. It's a pleasure working as a professional with this city, and this has been another example of that. As was very succinctly and efficiently described to you, this will not change the fact that no recreational marijuana will be permitted to be sold. It's going to require a vote change. That's not what's being addressed here. This is simply reflecting the overarching nature of cannabis regulation in the state of Oregon that is shifting from dual agency oversight to what I believe, and most commentators will believe, will be eventually a single agency, and that will be OLCC. I didn't introduce myself. I apologize. I'm Anthony Stewart. I represent Western Oregon Dispensary, and they're located at 15025 Southwest 12 in Sherwood. What is beneficial about this change is that OLCC is imbued with a wider range of powers. They have a much larger enforcement budget, which is very important from a community safety standpoint. We've had no issues, or my clients had no issues in their facility, both here in town and any other of their facilities, recreational or medical. But a transition to OLCC is allows them to take part in what is a much more finely tuned system than the legacy Oregon Health Authority system. It was a means to an end for the state, but like anything, efficiency really helps, especially when it comes to the dollars and cents. Part of the OLCC program that they've been trying to expand into the OHA world is the seed to sale tracking, what they call CTS, Cannabis Tracking System. It's one of the preeminent tracking systems in the country. Truly, every single time the cannabis is even looked at, let alone touched, it is registered, and the compliance requirements, both for recreational and in this case medical, are among the highest in the nation. So you can ensure that there's no diversion and that nothing will change, and this only provides an opportunity for better safety for the community. Lastly, Western Oregon Dispensary, which is located here under your jurisdiction, is the only remaining medical marijuana facility in the Portland metro and suburbia region. And about half the clients are from within 5-10 miles, and the other half come from quite some distance, both for the price and the access to the tax-free medical products. So I'm here. If you have any questions, I've been attending. Like I said, the staff's done a really good job, but if I can be of any assistance, please let me know.
Great. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to give testimony on the first reading of the proposed ordinance? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing for the first reading of ordinance 2018-008. Thank you, Erica, for the great presentations. Look forward to seeing you again soon for the second reading. Now that Councilor Griffin can see.
Thank you.
Were you complaining over there?
He was just making a request, and the chief was nice enough to help out. We'll move on to city manager report. Joe?
Mayor and Council, just one item to note. Those three ordinances will be on the October 2nd meeting for the second reading, which is your next regular meeting. I have two items, one myself, and then I'm going to have Chief Growth give an update on an upcoming event. You were talking in your deliberations about the charter review, and you mentioned a number of times about people going through Citizens University. I'm going to put a plug in because the deadline is this Friday, and right now I only have 8 applicants. I really want to get it up to 10 or more.
I'm going to do it.
So, yeah, you can do it again, Councilor.
No, I haven't done it yet.
You haven't done it?
Citizens U.
Well, you need
there
to
you go, write them down.
There's
Top
mine.
of class.
I'll go with you.
camera.
We'll go with you. I haven't done it yet.
Oh, we'll go
I haven't
together.
gone to Citizens University yet.
I'm going for sure.
Okay.
There you go.
There's my 10. So that's the plug.
Yeah.
Would love to have a few more citizens sign
You
up.
can have more. Don't think
Yes.
you can't apply.
Yes.
If need be.
I can
Wanted to
send
do
it
that
back.
plug. So I think actually your incoming counselor, assuming he wins in November, David.
Don't read
He's
anything
also an
into that.
alumni. So.
He's hiding.
That? I thought you were
There's
just
11.
classes. Anyway, all right, I'm
There's
done
11
plugging
right
that. So, Chief, what is coming in early October you wanted to remind folks about?
Doesn't coffee sound good right now?
Yeah.
Even
Coffee with the
better.
cop?
Even better, at 8 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, October 3rd, at Symposium. It's National, I better back up here. National Coffee with a Cop Day. Happens once a year. And so we will be out to celebrate that at Symposium Wednesday. Is that before the China trip?
Yep.
Good. You two can make it. That's perfect.
Will the puppies be there?
Yeah, we will do what we can to get the puppies. You're there to
No longer
visit
about
with
the
your
cops.
police officers, but everybody wants to see the
Councilor
dog.
Rosner's priorities need to be adjusted.
That's right.
So yes,
Calling them out
Wednesday,
right here now.
October 3rd,
It's like-
Symposium 8 to 11.
8 to
Love to
11.
have folks come out.
October 3rd.
No agenda, just conversation with your police officers over the brewed coffee is free, provided by Symposium. If you want the foo-foo coffee, you'll have to pay for that.
Great.
Thank you.
Very nice.
That's all I had, unless you had any questions for
Questions
myself.
for Joe? Questions for Joe?
We have a work session after this, just as a reminder.
Yes.
Right, we're not going anywhere.
In other words, keep it short.
That's usually what yeah.
Express what you need to express, council. This is your moment to shine.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Kuiper, gear up. No pressure. See how you react to this moment. Are you
I
going to
have
sing?
no pressure. I don't know. I do not. I only sing under pressure. All right, here we go. Actually, we had a great Cultural Arts Commission meeting on Monday. There's a lot going on, but I only speak to a couple things. We have bike racks coming. And Kristen Schweitzer, our community service director, is in the audience. Where do we get the grant from for those? Washington County Visitors Association, and I'm not sure how much money that was. What was that? I did not write that down. Okay, so we have 56,000? 56, cool.
So who approved the bike racks and where they're going to go and all that stuff?
Right, so we have a design team, and I cannot remember their design team name, but they have, what's the design team name? Sea Reach. And so I keep lobbying the ball back to the back of the room. Anyway, the Cultural Arts Commission took a look at some of the initial designs, and Sea Reach is going to come back at the next Cultural Arts Commission meeting, and we will make a decision. Those things have to be installed by the end of the year, so we have to use that money, the grant money by the end of the year. So it's exciting.
So will the Planning Commission be in the loop on this? Is it appropriate the Planning Commission be in the loop since they approve standards of this and that and the other thing of development?
I think that would be a good idea.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, that's a good addition. The public art so the public art program, we're coming up with a master plan that will be ready for another draft distribution to the Cultural Arts Commission. It's going to be a great foundation on which to build a public art program, so I'm really excited. I'll be going to the League of Oregon Cities annual meeting, and there's 2 mobile workshops that I'll be attending specifically for public art. One as an economic development engine at the city of Springfield, and the other one is the 20 by 21 Arts Mural Project in the city of Eugene. So those are going to be some great hopeful takeaways. The only other thing I wanted to mention is that there will be if you enjoyed the Unity Project, of not too long, several months ago, then you will really love an upcoming project that is still under woolly blankets, let's just say, that will probably be brought out at some time in the spring. So stay tuned.
We'll teaser.
And we'll be back.
Is that a hint?
Yes, that was a hint.
Subtle.
Did that sound all right? It was a hint.
Just if there are sheep involved, please have them controlled on a leash, fenced in, something. I have no idea truly what is happening, but we have public safety to think about.
Awesome.
Councilor Browse.
Sure. 2 kudos. One to Wilson Parish for the blood drive on 9/11. It was well attended, well ran, even with a little bit of a blimp with the new vehicle. But it was just really great to volunteer. Saw Nancy there, but also to hear the stories of people that come back each year and why they give. And somebody was there that had given, I don't know, it was just uncanny the amount of time that she was given blood. I also want to say kudos to the Art Walk. It was another great art walk. Lots of people participating, lots of businesses. It seems to grow each time. But just a reminder that this coming Saturday is the Peace Walk, sponsored by the Rotary Club of Sherwood. So it starts at 10 a.m. if I remember correctly, and they'll be walking around the different peace poles in the community of Sherwood, and then there's some activities going on at Cannery Square and in the Arts Center.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Rosner.
Got a couple things. I guess it was last week, I attended the Greater Portland Inc. Economic Summit. It was a great event. It was definitely a corporate event, not a government event. They had lots of music and lights and people dancing in the aisles. It was pretty entertaining, but it was a good meeting, and they talked a lot about how we can provide work together to provide opportunity for people in need in our communities as business owners. And you know, for us attending that, it's really about working with GPI to make sure. If people don't know this, for everyone listening, GPI helps us identify potential companies that might be interested in coming in and developing some of the commercial land that's available in town. So
and industrial,
commercial, industrial, retail, et cetera. And so they're an important partner, and they help us out quite a bit, and we want to continue to leverage that, and that's why I attended. I also attended the school board meeting last week. I have to say it was one of the one of the funnest school board meetings I've ever been to, if you can say a school board meeting is fun. And I highly encourage all of you to go the first meeting after school starts. All the Councilor Kuiper knows what I'm talking about here. Yeah, all the principals come in and give their first week report. And at first I thought it was going to be really dry and numbers and facts, but there was a little bit of that, but it was more about their experience of the first week, anecdotal stories, and what I got out of it was these teachers and principals were really stoked about the beginning of the year and starting things out, and it was really cool to see a lot of great stories. There was one story, I won't go into detail, but a principal was called to a boys' bathroom because there was a little kindergartner in there sitting down saying, "I'm done. I need help."
Oh, no.
And even though he had to assist his child and send him home with some homework for his parents, he still said it with a big smile, you know, and how enjoyable and how much he loves being a principal. So,
dedication, proven to get again.
Yes. The school board, they also gave an update on the new high school construction. As most of you know, the foundations have been poured, which is incredible how fast that they are moving on that. And it was also great to hear how they're really being stewards of the taxpayers' money. For instance, they went out and pre-bought all the steel for the buildings so they don't have to worry about steel tariffs, which is great. So there's a lot of good things going on over there. Last night I met with some other elected officials, with Congresswoman Bonamici, prior to the town hall meeting she had last night. We talked about a lot of regional issues that are facing us, from getting more funding for mental health services, opioid addiction, and those types of things, and how she can help out our region with that. I did lobby her to help out with some specific issues that Sherwood's facing in terms of, I shouldn't say issues, but challenges that we're facing in terms with the FCC and small cell regulation. So she said she would turn that over to her legislative team. That might be code for, I don't have time for it, but we'll see. But
in her defense, you realize that staff, they're the backbone of all of our congressional members, and they make it happen.
Yeah,
but or at least explore it to see what could be done.
But it was a good meeting. It was enjoyed getting to know her a little bit better, and I think that's it.
Awesome. Council President Garland.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief tonight. Attended Planning Commission last week. As I always say, kudos to them. They do great work, and they're keeping the city functional, and I appreciate everything they do. Do a little cheerleading. The Chamber of Commerce is holding a voters forum in this room here on October 3rd. I don't know which day of the week. That's a Wednesday, I believe. Wednesday night. It's at 6:30. Doors open at 6 p.m., if I recall the numbers correctly. We do have an uncontested election here in Sherwood. Our mayor and two councilors are running unopposed, and we've got, unfortunately, Councilor Kuiper has chosen not to run for re-election, but one of our planning commissioners, Mr. Doug Scott, has very valiantly thrown his hat in the ring to join us on city council. So that being said, just because we don't have a contentious election here in Sherwood doesn't mean that we shouldn't vote. A lot of important items coming up on this November election. I don't think I need to tell anyone that.
No, wait, is it Bob Terry? Who else is going to be there?
Catherine Harrington and Bob Terry.
All right, so I think that would be definitely come for that, even
Absolutely.
though we're going to take hardly any time.
And I think there are going to be a few of the other House and Senate candidates have reached out to me and said that they are going to try and attend as well. So you may have an opportunity to mingle with them and speak to them. As I say, the doors open at 6 p.m. The event will start at 6:30. And as I recall from previous events, we generally have some time to talk with the candidates afterwards. It will be televised, I assume, on the city's YouTube channel. So if you can't make it in person, live stream it, watch it afterwards. And so on that note, voter registration for the state of Oregon ends on Tuesday, October 16th. If you've moved recently or are new to the state and you haven't gone to the DMV yet, make sure to get registered before October 16th, and ballots and voter packets will be in the mail before you know it. So that's all I have.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean.
So last week I attended the chamber breakfast. That was really good. Our planning department with Carrie and Erica gave us an update on the comp plan update process and where that's headed. That was really good. All of us actually attended the front porch dinner last Thursday, the city's 125th birthday, and that was a great time. That was a really neat event. So we all got experience of serving, some of us for our first time, serving our community, serving their dinners. So that was a lot of fun. And then I just want to thank Chief for his presentation during our work session on police staffing. That's very valuable information, and I'm looking forward to us as a council continuing that conversation and seeing how we can move forward with figuring out how we can provide the staffing that is needed to keep our city strong.
Counselor?
I'm going to keep going last this time. I usually just jump right in there. So I was able to go to the Parks Board meeting earlier in the month, and Jason Waters came and talked about the Cedar Creek Trail, and there's a very interesting thing happening. There's a part of the trail that's over on 99 where ODOT has sort of that pile of gravel, right along that. And so initially the ODOT said, yeah, just take out those street trees and just make the trail go down there. And Jason said, what if that trail kind of wandered between those huge firs? What a great idea. Oh my gosh, if we can get that'll be such a cool section of the trail. So I just really appreciate his effort in that and staff's effort and the Parks Board support. Let's make the trail something really cool. I was talking at that meeting, I was talking about how sometimes almost any time of the year, you can drive down Sunset Boulevard, and it's just one of the most beautiful roads anywhere in the state. And I feel like that's the kind of protection and effort we should put into all of our little parks and our trails and I would much rather wind that trail through those trees than to cut any of those tall firs down. So I applaud them for doing that. And the next Parks Board meeting is coming up on, I think, October 1st, isn't it? That's the first Monday at 7 p.m. here. It's always a lot of fun. Come and join us. And let's say I was able to go to the Police Advisory Board meeting because Councilor Young was indisposed at the time. And basically it was the chief sort of it was the rah-rah session before coming to this meeting about the staffing. And he's a great rah-rah guy, so it was good. And
is there a past we need to know about the chief?
Yeah, no. And
it's his merchant.
Yeah. And I really want to applaud the board. I don't know what it will. I mean, I've known about the Police Advisory Board. I attended a meeting a while back when it first got started, but I really felt sitting there as they were all kind of like, we're all together. We support you. I felt like this is awesome that this board is coming together and supporting our police officers. That's their whole purpose, is to better that whole presence within our community. I just really applaud all of them, for doing that. Anybody who's been on the board, anybody who's, spent time with the police department, I think it's great. And I encourage more citizens, when appropriate, to go on ride-alongs. It's very informative. Chief was talking tonight about how we don't do as much proactive. We do as much as we want to because the officers are so busy. The night that I went out 6 months ago, we probably spent about 30, maybe 40 minutes out of the 5 or 6 hours, just patrolling to be proactive because he was busy the whole time. So one experience, and I completely supported what you were talking about in our work session today. Let's see, and the Robin Hood Festival Association, their next meeting is on Thursday, 9/20 at 7 p.m. at the Masonic Lodge in Old Town. I wanted to let the citizens know that if they, because I get these questions all the time, hey, what's going on over in that field, or what's the deal with that? The planning page on the city's website has all the current land use applications and the status. You can click, and if you have the bandwidth, you can download all of the plans, all 32 megabytes of. You want to see the interior floor plan of the new Family Fun Center going in the dirt next to. You can download that, and you can look right to all 3 levels of it. You can look at every inch of that. So if you're interested, just check that out. Check that out. And it's too bad I'm going to miss the League of Oregon Cities convention. Unfortunately, I'll be in New York on Broadway watching Daniel Radcliffe in a play. I know that's awful, but I'll try to miss all you guys when I'm in New York City next week. So, yeah, that's it.
We'll be in your dreams.
Yeah,
we know.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you, counselors. Yes, kudos to Sherwood Main Street, downtown business owners, Fat Milo's, Mason's Restaurant, the many volunteer members of our historical society for putting in lots of hours of doing displays and dressing up and really making sure it would look awesome on the front porch celebration. Kudos to the volunteers of council and staff who served. I was not one of them, as everyone knows, because we had enough people volunteering at that, and I had to volunteer to say a few words and mingle. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then I got recruited to dance. Ugh, I really wrecked the stage. I got serenaded by a counselor. It was an incredible night. Folks I chatted with to a person, they loved it. They were very appreciative of the staff efforts, not just volunteering, but staff helping everybody to make it happen. We had to move it inside our glorious art center because the weather was sketchy for having it out on Railroad as originally planned, but something to certainly contemplate repeating. Because people had such a nice time. Yes, and Christopher Flores and
Present Joy, I think.
Present Joy Events helping out, and here's a test.
Sprinkles of Joy.
Sprinkles of Joy events, and the band that
June Bugs.
Oh, they were great.
Thank you. I had
503.
503.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just a big advertisement right now. But it was a great time, and everyone that was able to be there, either during it or after it, when we had a big cake and lots of cupcakes for everybody. It was nice, and of course it poured outside. So we made the right choice. Collectively, we made the right choice. Next week, many of us will be at League of Oregon Cities, so that is great. I harken back to the days when I served before for a number of years on council as a mayor and city councilor, and the members that ever went to League of Oregon Cities in a given year were 2.
Wow.
Are y'all going?
Yes.
And we have 5.
Wow.
Yes.
Plus, we have a planning commissioner going.
Yes.
New planning commissioner is going to get all skilled up, trained, in addition to the university. So it's fantastic. So it makes me a little proud of this city council, and I know it is difficult to go, and so I understand. So that's awesome. Before you know it, we'll have a joint meeting with the school board, and rumor has it we might go to the site of construction to witness the massive pile berm. Joe?
So, since you mentioned that,
Yeah.
I'm going to state secret here. That pile, the big mound, which is only temporary, they've named that, Skanska and the contractors. That is now called Mount Cordy.
Oh, my gosh.
Does Dr. Cordy know that?
Yes.
No.
Told us.
Okay.
Mount Cordy.
She offered, actually, when we were talking about scheduling this, she's like, I think they took the school board out recently and on little ATVs and tooled around the 80-acre site and said, I
There,
would
if,
like
if
to
that happens, there will
invite-"
better best be waivers that everybody
Oh, there'll be
signs that
waivers.
gets on them things, and but
Recreational immunity or something like that.
Awesome.
job
That's great.
site
We
liability.
can't wait.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Do we have
A little bit.
That's
A
recreation.
little bit.
It's a
It'll be
school
muddy and rainy. We won't go
liable,
out. Just so you
I'm not
know.
really too worried about it.
The school district would be liable.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll end it at that. There was something else that I was going to bring up, but I forget, and it's not important because we have a work session, and
Mayor, can I bring up one more thing?
Yeah.
Very quickly?
yes, Counselor.
Since we had a proclamation for the YMCA tonight,
Yes.
I would be remiss. I had an opportunity through Rotary to take a tour of the YMCA last Friday, and Ryan, our new director over there, gave the tour, and I was really impressed. I mean, he's doing a great job over there. They're doing a lot of good work. They got a brand new filtration system put in, which is awesome. The old one was leaking and having problems, but really is doing a great job over there. So I wanted to throw out a kudos.
Awesome. Yeah, a few of us that some that were at the celebration at 4:00 this afternoon. We went into the bowels of the YMCA and saw the filtration. Yeah, it's enormous. So it's a place most people don't get to go, but it used to occupy this huge room full of sand filters, and now it's just this refrigerator size. Wow. So it's great. Very much needed. With that, we're going to adjourn to work session. Thank you.